Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining today's Eco-Influencer panel. I'm Melissa Sun, the head of entertainment partnerships at the Sierra Club, the largest grassroots environmental org in the US. I have long black hair and I'm wearing a pink top. First off, thanks so much to the Hollywood Climate Summit for having us and for organizing this incredible event, which helps educate and inspire our next generation of storytellers. Climate and environmental activists have struggled to find ways to communicate that really reach people. They've tried doom and gloom, polar bear appeals, but those don't begin to tell half our story. The panelists here today are modernizing climate storytelling. They're forging new ways of communicating about the climate crisis and environmental and intersectionality. They're meeting people where they are on social media. Their content appeals to us on an emotional level and feels timely and relevant. They also reflect the diversity of this country and our movement, which has always been driven forward by queer, Black, Indigenous, and people of color changemakers. The stories we tell matter, and that's why the Sierra Club is supporting this panel. For too long, fossil fuel execs and the politicians in their pockets have shaped the narrative around the climate crisis. But now, through the power of social media, actors, activists, students, everyday people like you and I are shifting the narrative one by one, just by telling our stories. I'm happy to introduce the moderator of today's panel, another woman using her superpowers for good, Lacy Wyn Wright. Lacy is a political and social impact consultant leveraging media and entertainment for social change. She was previously the Associate Director of BLD PWR, Kendrick Sampson's nonprofit, and launched the Hollywood for Black Lives initiative. Take it away, Lacy.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our Eco-Influencers panel. I am here with an amazing group of eco-influencers who've been using their platforms to champion environmental justice. We're here today to hear from them about how they blend storytelling, the creative process with their activism, and really what makes green social influence. My name is Lacy. I'm an activist and social impact consultant in Hollywood. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and today I'm wearing a gray shirt with an unfortunately blank wall. And I'm gonna pass it off to each of y'all to kind of introduce who you are, what you do, and what brought you into the work. And I'm gonna put it to Patagonia first, because I need an explanation of this outfit to start.
Hey everybody, my name is Pattie Gonia. I go by she, they pronouns. I am a drag queen, which basically just means I'm a professional gay, and I'm also an intersectional environmentalist. I'm very honored to be here. And my outfit, I am wearing a corset and a wig made of trash from my time in quarantine. My best friend Dana made this for me, and I love her every day for it, and I pass it to Isaias.
Thanks so much again, Pattie. And hi, everyone. My name is Isaias Hernandez. I use he, they pronouns. I am wearing a black velvet shirt and have black hair. So I'm super excited to be here. I really and deeply passionate about environmental education. And I'm a content creator of QueerBrown Vegan, where I just create a variety of environmental topics for a lot of folks entering the environmental movement.
Why don't we pass it off next to Leah?
Hi, everybody. My name is Leah Thomas. I use she, her pronouns, and I have dark brown hair, a orange shirt, and I have various closets behind me. A little bit about me. I'm an environmental justice educator. I have my personal sustainable living blog, Green Girl Leah, and last year I founded the now nonprofit Intersectional Environmentalist, which is all about synthesizing climate justice information and exploring the intersections between identity and climate. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
All right, how about Abbie next?
Thank you. My name's Abbie. I use she, her pronouns. I have brown hair and I'm wearing a blue shirt with a black sweater, and I am in front of a lot of plants because that's what makes me happy. I run the TikTok account Tofology, where I focus on climate change and disinformation. What I also study for my master's degree. And then I also co-run EcoTalk, which is an environmental collective of different eco creators. Isaias is one of us. And yeah, I think that about sums it up.
Amazing. And last but certainly not least, Richa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Richa Moorjani. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm so excited to be here because I follow all of you and I learned so much from all of you. I'm somebody who cares a lot about the environment and about animal rights, and I have dark brown hair and I'm wearing a blue and pink top in front of this cream colored wall.
Well, amazing. I'm so glad to have you all together, and I'm sure we'll all learn a lot from each other as well. And that's something I wanted to start off with is, I've watched all of your accounts. I'm big fans of all of you, and you talk from everything about everyday tips to deconstructing the military industrial complex. So tell me, as you're creating content, what do you feel the most important aspects of environmentalism that you're trying to get across to your followers? Who wants to go first?
I'll go. I think that you already really hit the nail on the head there with just how broad it is like there isn't one thing that I ever am trying to convey because there isn't one answer. Like it does range from so many different conversations, and you have to incorporate environmentalism into all aspects of our society. So that's why it's so important to have so many different voices in the conversation and different expertise. So I really do think that you summed it up so well already that I was like, yeah.
Is there a specific topic that you're finding your followers respond to more that, people really engage with?
Personally, I focus on disinformation, which I think people find really confusing. So they engage with that because they're overwhelmed by the amount of information and what's true, what's not true, how information might be manipulated. So personally, I've found that that's a really important part of the discussion that I can help with.
I really think that a lot of my communication around climate is just around connecting to climate. I think that we hear all the time that we have to fight for social justice and fight for environmental justice every day. And I'm like, yes, and get outside, touch grass. Yes, and love yourself. Yes, and we fight for what we love. So fall in love with yourself, fall in love with people that are not like you, fall in love with this planet, and you're going to fight for it even more. So I think it's just about encouraging people to go outside, and especially for the gays, touching the grass is important. So that is me. Isaias, you want to go for it?
I definitely love that statement. Nature is queer. I would say that, a lot of people often feel afraid, confused, or sometimes uncomfortable when trying to bridge the gap between what does this environmental impact of a product have to do with race, class, and gender. And so I believe that in this environmental movement that we live in today, it's not really based off who can re-traumatize others better / oppression Olympics, but rather you would say building harmonious relationships that are not just focus on peace and justice, but more of accountability on that focus. And so I'd say that a lot of people are in this culture shift where there's more accessible resources being made and really making those interconnections, one being, Leah Thomas that coined Intersectional Environmentalist. So would love to hear her thoughts on that.
I think going off of what Isaiah said, that this is a collective movement. So with climate justice and intersectional environmentalism, there are so many players in this space who have been around for such a long time. The environmental justice movement of the 80s, there's just so many incredible pioneers, especially, Black environmental justice advocates that people should take the time to learn about. So I think with some of the work that I do, a lot of it is really about pointing people in the direction of who all those incredible people are, because I think environmental education is really incomplete if it's not telling the true story of environmental history. And that means all of the incredible BIPOC and LGBTQ plus people and beyond who have been there for a very long time. And I feel like the fun part of it is just uncovering who all those people are, who all those stories are, and enriching your own environmental practice. And I do a lot of random things on my platform because I also try to show people I'm just a human, okay? I can talk about racial justice and advocacy, and I can also talk about how much I love my cat and how much I'm just a person. And so I'm trying to bring some, humanness back to Instagram if you can, and get outside and touch grass and stuff.
Bringing humanness back to Instagram, that's a whole new world. Well, for Richa, I actually have a quick question is, how do your followers really respond when you're posting about climate and environmental justice? Most folks are following you because they're fans from Never Have I Ever. So how do your fans respond when you start posting about social justice?
Yeah, I think it is a little different for me because unlike all of you, my page is most of my followers don't follow me for the reasons that they follow you guys. They follow me because of never have I ever. And if anything, I just see it as an opportunity to talk about the things that really matter to me outside of obviously acting in that world and help. I myself am still learning so much. And I think that social media is such an incredible tool to spread information, to spread awareness, and education. So I try to use my platform to share the things that I'm still learning and the things that I'm passionate about. And I found that, for the most part, people are really glad to see that I'm posting about these things, and and I've gotten amazing messages from people saying that they've learned things from my page that they didn't think about before, or I'm really passionate about veganism and I'm a huge animal rights person, so I post a lot about that. And it is kind of still, unfortunately, a very controversial subject. I don't know why it is, but it is, and there's not enough people screaming about it. So I'm just here to scream about it.
I love that. Well, I kind of wanted to pivot for the rest of y'all. What first kind of inspired you to start your accounts? When did you realize like this is what I want to be posting out? This is the kind of content I want to create.
I can go first. It's kind of funny because my blog actually started as Green Girl Food back in 2016, and I was posting like acai bowls and things like that, and I just couldn't keep up. Like, I don't even cook that much. So then I slowly started being a little bit more of myself because mostly I was just posting about food. And I started to notice along the way that there was this really beautiful community of Black women in sustainability that I was able to find through Instagram and online, and it just felt really empowering. And then the more I started to work in sustainability spaces or in the outdoor community at Pattie, Gonia, then I started to realize there's a serious lack of representation of diversity and inclusion in the environmental space and outdoor spaces. But again, that's not because we're not there. We are there. There are just so many companies and organizations that are not providing pathways for us to be present. So over time, I just started realizing, okay, this little Instagram blog that I had for I think 6 years before I started actually gaining a couple followers, could be a place to show representation and then just cultivate community and find other people that are doing this work. So I think I'm most grateful for my platform because it's introduced me to so many other people. So I know that I'm not alone, and I get messages a lot of the times from other Black women in sustainability or Black students that say, okay, because I saw this post or because I saw this thing, I'm going to start a hiking club or something like that. And that's why I'm just really excited about this work and everyone who's here and how I started it, food, and now intersectional environmentalism.
Amazing. What about anyone else?
Isaias, go for it. I saw you go off mute.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I guess for me, I really was passionate about environmentalism such at a young age. And I think like after graduating from college, I was just like, I'm not using my degree. I was working at a creative agency in New York City and just was really just burnt out. And one day I was at an airport and I just was thinking about names about like, you know what, I'm just going to create infographics before kind of the popularization that they became of during 2019 to 2021, And I created this account because specifically I wanted to be more, like Leah said, like representative of my own identity, my own values, like me as a vegan, like why I'm so passionate about advocating for an ethical food supply chain that is free from cruelty of exploitation of humans and animals. And so for me, I kind of wanted to explore those dimensions to kind of give coverage and surface to a lot of people that may have not really been experienced to these issues. And so people don't have to feel this self-shame where they can really feel collectivized vulnerability through my content and really learn with me, because at the end of the day, like my work is very centered in introductory forms, meaning like I don't care who you are, like how much knowledge you really know, like as long as you're willing just to like challenge yourself and try to challenge me in this space, like this means a lot for me. And I think this is what kind of eventually like influence a lot of people to continue asking questions, because I often don't provide solutions. I just generally just offer thought-provoking questions about what we can do. So yeah, that's really how I kind of got started.
First of all, Isaias, Leah, I love so much of what y'all shared because I think it is all about, I think it's really easy to view social media as your followers and not your community. And I think that for me, it's made all the difference to realize that I am human, and so is the person that's also very tired, that's on the other end of this phone looking at it, just trying to give 1% more shits about the planet. So I really think of it as my community. And that's made the world a difference. And I also think that it's all about learning together. You know, while Pattie is wizard over here, Wyn is muggle, and I am just trying to figure this shit out too. So like, it is definitely a journey. I am also very thankful to learn from other people, but yeah, I really love that of what y'all shared. And I think that like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's just truly, I think, about being a lifelong learner, about coming up with different ways that we can ally and take actions as allies for other communities, other issues. And so my journey with Pattie's account happened very overnight. I'll keep it very brief, but basically happened kind of overnight when I posted a video strutting in the outdoors in high heels. And then people were like, oh my gosh, outdoor drag queen, we've needed you since 5 ever. And I'm like, I've only done drag once. SOS, what do I do? So ever since, it's just been a journey of me figuring out literally how to do drag. Shout out to the 13-year-olds on YouTube that taught me how to do makeup in quarantine. So we are like becoming a drag queen. We are a toddler. We are learning to walk. But also along with like my drag journey has also been like my sustainability journey, and also just my journey to care more about this planet and the people on it. And I feel like, I'm just trying to share honestly, because I also think that like what this world needs more of is just honesty and just the truth and accountability too, and just trying to own up to your mistakes when you do make them, and really show people, model to people what it looks like to actually do allyship, which is literally stumbling and falling most of the time, but just like getting back up and trying again. So I said a lot of words. I don't know if it makes sense, but that's me. And Abbie, would love to hear your words that probably make way more sense. Richa, you too. Go for it. I'm a mess.
I doubt I'll make any more sense. Like, please don't stress. But I actually completely, I can't say completely relate because I did not go viral for any drag related reasons. But I do relate to the going viral accidentally and then kind of having to evolve into that role that you were continuously pushed to fill. I did not do this on purpose, but I initially went viral for trying to cancel golf, which I stand by, and I would do it again.
I'm obsessed with you. I am obsessed with you.
Stop, I'm gonna cry.
I think
I'm
you
obsessed
tell
with
the
you.
people why you were trying to cancel golf, or just bring education about how golf can be not the thing.
Golf is the worst. Golf is just like, it's representative of how intersectional I view environmental issues. It's just such a perfect example of how so much of our society is like wasteful, and like resources are being hoarded by the wealthy in like really just unnecessary ways in that nobody enjoys, and they're just doing it for like the sake of tradition. Like nobody's really happier with it, and like it's just such a poor use of space, and it makes me so mad, and also it's boring. Also the clothes are ugly. I have a lot of reasons, but that was initially what wound up with like me having a presence on the internet. And like I kept making those videos because I made one and it did well and people had more questions, and I kept looking into it, and I got to the point where I was like calling golf course superintendents being like, how much water are you using? Like, what is your pesticide usage? So I was doing that for a while, and then I also kind of got into some work combating a lot of anti-Semitism and conspiracies with the rise of QAnon, especially last fall, like pre-election and whatnot, and got asked to explain a lot about that, and kind of wound up merging the two, where now I focus on disinfo and extremism, conspiracy theories, but also climate change and how they intersect.
No, I love that. And that actually kind of leads me into my next question is, we're living in a world now where I think the majority of people are getting their news from social media. So truly does, especially I think both Pattie and Abbie kind of said like you went viral kind of surprisingly. Do you feel, and especially also for Richa, you talked about you're still very early in this journey of posting about environmentalism and that we're all still in this learning journey. Is there extra pressure, that's put on you to feel like a news source as well as being entertaining?
Yes, absolutely. I think, any of us who have a platform, and even those who don't have a platform, I think there's just so much pressure to be perfect in every way. And I just really love what all of you said about, how, Patagonia was mentioning how the world needs just so much more honesty. And I think along with that is vulnerability. I think we're not allowed to be vulnerable anymore, and we're not allowed to make mistakes anymore. And it's very upsetting because I think that's the beauty of being human is, we make mistakes and we learn and we grow. And there is a lot of pressure to be perfect and to speak about every single issue under the sun. And I just think, I myself am still on this journey where I'm learning how to, I guess, not worry about what the world expects of me and to just use my authentic voice. And I'm still learning about that. But I've just found that people respond the best when they know that what I'm talking about is really coming from a place of authenticity and what I really care about. So that's why, even if I talk about something that I know people don't want to hear about, they don't want to read about it, which is basically everything I post about when it comes to animal rights. I just know if I care about it and if it's coming from a place of my own truth and it's fact-based, I don't really care how it's received because the truth needs to be out there.
I sense it in my community too, that like there's no room to make mistakes because people are so fearful of getting canceled. And I think it's really important to address that. We kind of have to ask ourselves what kind of climate community we want to make and what kind of community we want to be a part of. And I don't know about y'all, but I want to be one that leads with love and also accountability. I do not think that the social media guillotine is an effective tool. I think that it's a laterally oppressive tool that puts marginalized people against each other. I think that also like requires hard work. That requires like truly being a part of a like community too. I think for anyone who wants to get into this space, I get messages all the time from queer people that want to get into the science space, environmental space. Like I want them to know that community's out there, a community that's going to be for them and for their learning and for their growth. I think it's worth it to create. But I don't want people to feel so fearful of doing something wrong that they do nothing at all or say nothing at all, because saying nothing is a choice too. So I think that that's really important to address. It's not just for us as eco-influencers. I think it's for everyone who's listening right now that, I hope you feel and I hope you can cultivate a space on the internet and in your real life that is for you because, girl, I want to tell you, not everyone in this world is going to be for you because people project their own trauma, project their own life experiences, also have disinformation, also just think with a different perspective. Like, do y'all remember disagreeing and like not having it be like the end of the world? Like, that's a novel concept. Like, we can agree to disagree. I don't know. I think we need more of that in the environmental space. So
I like that. I think that's a really big learning lesson for me too, because I have a similar story. I kind of went viral suddenly, and then my personal platform and then Intersectional Environmentalist started to grow, and that was a lot of responsibility that I had never had before. But it was a moment where when that wave comes, you just try to ride it and you try to do the best that you can and you learn really quickly. But I think something that I had to do with my personal platform was start to set boundaries, because I noticed that my engagement increased when I was sharing Black trauma and the trauma of my people during the Black Lives Matter movement. And when I would start to share like Black joy or different joyful moments of my life, like I wouldn't get the same engagement. And it made me almost feel kind of sick to my stomach that I'm not here to perform the trauma of my community. Like I need to exist for other reasons and show different sides of myself. So I feel like that is something that I'm trying to do with my personal platform and with Intersectional Environmentalist, to start focusing on solutions and optimism. Obviously, still talking about all of the terrible things that are going on in the world, but with balance, because I started to realize that social media sometimes it does promote and boost Black trauma and the trauma of a lot of other marginalized and historically excluded people. So yeah, that's something that I'm doing. And then another boundary with IE is telling people that we aren't a news platform, because people have a lot of expectations for us to report on the news as soon as it happens, without realizing we have our graphic designer or 2 student researchers that are trying to put something together. And we want to make sure we have the best perspective possible, and perspectives are incomplete. So that's something that we've been doing, and actually everyone's going to be taking a break, a paid vacation for 2 weeks, and we're going to just be offline for a month, maybe even more, letting people know we're working on it, we're building a strong foundation, and we want to come back being like having really clear boundaries and guidelines of who we want to be moving forward after just going at the speed of light for a year. And I'm excited. I hope all of you can also take breaks when you need to, because they're so worth it and so needed.
I'm taking a break at the end of October, so I'm very excited for that. I'm really happy to hear that IE people are also taking a break, because you guys totally deserve it. I've seen how hard you guys are working. And I just wanted to like also speak to how important those boundaries are, because I think people are really genuinely confused at the difference between a social media platform and a news outlet. They don't understand, and like that's not on them. I don't think that that discourse has like actually hit mainstream yet, and maybe we should be pushing that and helping them to understand that. But like there's a reason why news outlets exist and journalists exist and then editors exist and people have different jobs, so that they are getting that information as correct as possible before putting it out there. Whereas like I am one person, I don't have an editor looking over everything I do. So there's a reason why those newsrooms exist, and like we should absolutely appreciate that, and that we have a different role. And I think like helping people to understand that, in addition to setting those boundaries, is a really important next step in like social media relationships.
Well, Abbie, I'd also love to follow up with that. You are also an actual expert in disinformation, just currently getting a degree in that. What does the reverse look like to you? What does climate disinformation look like, and how can we combat that on social media?
It's interesting because climate change disinformation used to be a lot of climate change denial, which everybody is familiar with, head in the sand, climate change isn't happening, or just finding ways to poke holes in the science, whatever it was. But it is shifting, and it's something harder to pin down now because it's more distraction and delay. So it's, go focus on this tech solution that's totally gonna fix it, and then don't have conversations about like major systemic change. So it's a lot of shifting that kind of that conversation. So really one of the best ways I think to push through it is to focus on bringing that conversation back. If you do see it getting derailed into like a weird sci-fi tech thing that like maybe could work, maybe wouldn't, like, or whatever it is, or like a specific social issue that's getting like an inordinate amount of attention all of a sudden, and is distracting from conversations about like actual emission reductions, then it's a really good time to intervene and try and, you don't even have to like label it as like this is disinfo, but trying to bring the conversation back to like major systemic change. What does that look like?
Well, I kind of wanted to pivot a little bit. So as we've talked, you are not news channels, you're actually all creatives in some way. And so I'm curious, do you all see the content you're creating as a form of storytelling? How do you feel that you're able to really talk about yourself, your relationship to the planet, all of these things in really expressive ways?
I just think it's part of the writing part in making any type of like content online, right? It's, yes, you do include that science and data and often try to challenge that dominant narrative that's being put out there. But you also need to include your own lived experiences as a fundamental part of you of what that is applied to. And I think that a lot of people personally are just generally interested to hear what you want to say about these things. And I think that, yes, there's moments of our time that we might be like, maybe we should have said that, or maybe that was too direct in some way that may have been perceived differently. But I think that like including your cultural based experiences and lived experiences is super fundamental in these storytellers, especially within climate education, because this is what creates this accessibility component. Whereas a lot of Western science dominant rhetoric out there, it's often inaccessible. People who write it are not people that look like us, and the stories that are actually told from there do not relate to our communities that have been facing injustices for so long. So that's really about the way that I've seen it in social media.
Well, I'd actually love it to kind of punt that to Risha then, of like, as the only one in this group that actually is actively working in Hollywood, is have you found avenues to be more sustainable on set or to really tell sustainable stories?
I wouldn't necessarily say that I've found more avenues to be more sustainable on set. If anything, it's just having the experiences of being on set, I've realized how big of a problem Hollywood is when it comes to sustainability in the way things are made, and of course, sustainable storytelling. And I think that there's such a need for more sustainable storytelling. Everybody here knows that Hollywood has such a huge impact on the world, and people follow and copy and look to Hollywood for so many different things. And I think that if we are able to weave sustainability into our storytelling more, I'm just simple things, the way we, treat the planet in movies or in TV shows, when you see people littering or throwing clothes out the window, or just the way Mother Earth is treated in our stories, it has a huge impact on the collective psyche, even if it's on a subconscious level. So I think the way we treat animals in movies, the way horses are used in war movies, or the way people have pets and the way they're treated, or when animals are killed, all of these things have such a huge impact on the way we see the planet and see animals and see people, other people in real life. And so I think as much as representation matters for all people, I think it also matters when it comes to talking about the planet and talking about animals, and the way we're talking about and the way we're treating these things in our stories.
Risha, I love that you are holding, I think what you brought up is so powerful, because I think it's really cool how you're holding the same lens to Hollywood that I think a lot of times we try to hold to other things, and we're like, this industry is so wasteful. And I feel like I'm in touch with where I live in a very rural environment, to a lot of people that are like, and your worlds are just as wasteful too. I mean, like, the world of drag is such a wasteful art form. Like, the fact that with drag nowadays in the mainstream media, we are just obsessed with seeing queens stunt new looks rather than outfit repeating says enough. But I digress from the world of drag. But I think it's so powerful to think about every industry has work to do. And I think it's about asking ourselves, what's the work that's available to us and only to us in our own industries and in our own worlds? Because Hollywood's a completely different world than Big Ag America in Nebraska, where I was born and raised. And I think that it's just going to take us working towards solutions in our unique areas, all the time. So I'll be excited to see you push for more change on set, and I'm sure you do. And I think that it's going to just be a wave that is also needed in such a special space that you have access to that I sure don't have access to. So I think that's really beautiful to see.
Leah or Abbie?
I guess the question, if I see myself as a storyteller, so I don't know if a lot of people feel this way. A lot of my friends, especially BIPOC, kind of struggle with this. I didn't think that I could call myself a writer or a creative for years. I started freelance writing in 2013 and have, I've been published some places.
I love you. Oh, I'm off mute. Oh God. Okay, hold on. Let me mute myself.
Sorry. But I didn't think I could call myself a writer for some reason. And I don't know, I feel like maybe that's because the internet sometimes can be a really judgmental place, whether, someone's calling themselves a creative or an advocate or an activist or an organizer. What does it all mean? And I read this quote from Maya Angelou, my favorite writer, where she said, she's such an incredible author, but she said when she was working on her fourth book, she kept looking over her shoulder thinking, oh my God, somebody's going to find me out. Maybe I'm not this incredible writer. And if she struggled with it, it made me realize that, you know, probably a lot of creatives and storytellers struggle with it. So last year, I decided to officially call myself a writer. I know this isn't some revolutionary act or anything, but I put it in my bio because I'm like, I write things and I write okay, even if it's a caption. So I'm growing into that title because writing is always what I've wanted to do. When I participated in activism, I feel like writing was my microphone. I can be a bit shy at times. And I would say for any other creative that's watching this right now, call yourself exactly what you are. Manifest it, show up boldly, because, you know, nobody can take that away from you. So be you, do you. I'm a writer. That's that.
That is such good advice. I definitely think that people should embrace that they're creative. Like I think that's an important part of like climate change solutions too, is like that requires creativity. Like creating systemic change means that you have to think outside the box. So you need to like embrace that you're going to approach this creatively. Question was storytelling. Yeah, okay. I haven't, it's not something I've thought of that much. And I think that it's because it's kind of second nature that like, for me, the storytelling is in how I script and how I edit and the angles I choose for a certain video, like how I want to approach a specific topic, especially if that topic's like really tricky. I finding like a fun way in that is engaging to talk about hard things is its own kind of creative challenge. And for me, I've been really lucky because I have like an environmental degree, but spent a couple years like meandering around as a stand-up comedian and was able to kind of combine those and learn how to tell a good story, I hope. Otherwise, it wasn't worth it. But I think that the storytelling skills that I learned are really just seen in the product. I haven't thought about it that much. I'm glad to hear you guys have, though.
Yeah, Abbie, I just want to add one more thing. I think that like, well, I mean, I think this goes with what we were saying earlier, but I think I do view my social media as like a form of storytelling because I'm constantly figuring out what it is like to be a 7-foot person in high heels walking in full drag through the wilderness. But I also think that like the points where I feel like my story meets other people's is always when I talk about my failures through and through every time. Like, and by failures, of course I don't mean failures. We don't fail. But like my learning and like truly like my mess ups or my, oh, I didn't think of it from that angle, or, oh, I didn't think of it with that perspective, or I should have been more thoughtful on this, or, oh my gosh, yes, someone from my community made me aware of this, like amplifying this too. So I think that like we get to choose whether we want to be the expert or whether we want to be a learner. And I would rather be a learner and communicate that and storytell that than be an expert, because yeah, there's way other people that are far smarter than I am. So I think that, yeah, sharing your honesty and sharing your failures is huge for anyone listening and watching when it comes to climate, because that's how we can connect, is when we really meet our stories out there in the wild. So yeah, that is all.
That's beautiful. I love that. I think that's really good advice too, because like I personally am not vulnerable at all. Everything I put on social media, and I'll be like quite open about this, is pretty strategic and pretty planned out. And like I'm not the kind of person who like wants to be that open and vulnerable, but I also definitely think it's like beautiful when people are. And I do think that like I should do it more so that people know that it is part of a story and like that people have personal stories. So I'll take that to heart.
I love this. I love there's like this little community being built right now during this. Well, I kind of want to circle back, especially to something that Leah was kind of talking about of, being an eco-influencer is sometimes so central to, your business as a personality, but also I know like you're a writer, some of you are DEI consultants, so many of you are doing so many other things. How do you balance wanting to do things that are, obviously so good for the planet, but also being properly compensated and respected for the work that you're doing?
I have sent an email or two, I'm not going to lie. I guess because I've worked at, like sustainable apparel companies, like I'm familiar with their budgets, and I saw some of the behind the scenes of what people are being paid. Always have love for Pattie. I don't know if I should share this, but when I first went viral, they kind of told me their rates, and I realized how so many people were being not compensated appropriately. I think I don't know, this is another conversation for another day, but I really appreciate that transparency from a lot of mentors in my life. And I started to realize that these brands that are turning down Black and brown influencers, saying that they can't compensate them $300, are oftentimes paying white, sometimes in white, and 10 times the amount of BIPOC influencers. So there's really intense pay inequity in the education and online influencer space. Sure, that also goes into consulting and other things like that. But I think with transparency from other educators in this space, I think that gives a lot of people more confidence able to speak up for themselves. And whenever a company reaches out to me or asked to be, referred to other people in my network, I make sure that it is a paid opportunity. And if it's not, I remind them gifting product, even if this is a very beautiful outdoor piece of clothing that's expensive, this does not cover the cost of that person's time. So I always just make sure to say that it's important to compensate people. And if people turn it down, that's quite silly, because there are so many wealthy, and not to make it about race, that are charging insane amounts for an hour of their phone call. So it makes no sense that these brands that would willingly compensate people for that are not able to pay eco influencers who are trying to survive, protect people on the planet. It's silly. I'll get off my little soapbox.
No, we're here for the soapbox. This whole panel was to put out the soapbox for everyone.
I love soapboxes.
Yeah, I think that I agree also with Leah, is the fact of when dealing with organizations, institutions, or corporations that want to work with you, I believe that it's often, Black and Indigenous people of color having to take the full blunt of exploitation, especially specifically, animal rights organizations are doing great work. They receive one of the largest amounts of funding throughout any environmental NGOs. Yet when we're asked to be on campaigns, asked to be speaking, they'll, pay their favorite white animal rights celebrities to do these panels. But yet when it comes to asking for compensation as a person of color, you're kind of thrown off being like, no, we don't pay people. And so these are kind of the realities of myself, of now establishing healthy boundaries of if I see an email that does not include anything free, I just delete it off my inbox. It's not worth my time. It's not worth the investment to continue pursuing an organization. But I do shine lights now to be transparent with my community, saying they didn't pay me. You're more than welcome to work with them if you want for free, but I'm just highlighting my experience. And I think that more and more, I'm very transparent with my community, especially Eco Talk with Abbie. I tell people how much I charge with my rates, how much I charge things, because I believe that to kind of get people to get paid, you have to share with others that transparency. How much should I charge for writing an article, or how much should I charge for a keynote? And these are things that a lot of us didn't really know. We didn't grow up with this normalization of being paid for our work. We were always just normalized to be exploited. And so I think that now there's this greater threat to these organizations, brands, and corporations, knowing that we have to pay them. But in reality, we know that they have a lot of the high money for those big influencers and celebrities for whatever they need to. So I think it's, just digging deep into their treasure box and exploiting them back.
Isaias, I could not agree more with everything you said. I think it touches on, for anyone listening to this conversation that is a creative in any way, whether you want to do that creativity online or other ways. I spent 10 years as a photographer before I did Pattie, and the exploitation there is real, and the disproportional payment across BIPOC and white people is there too. It's in any industry in America, because shocker, capitalism kills us. But I think it's so interesting too, because I think what's really interesting to me, this kind of thing I haven't figured out, this thing I want to be vulnerable with y'all, is like, how much am I playing along by supporting this brand, even if they are doing something green and whatever? Like, how much am I just a part of this system? You know what I mean? And what's that system to break? But also, what's the way to use that system to then use those funds to support myself, support my team, and support a movement? So I'm at an interesting like crux right now, and I think a lot of us reach us in careers. Again, for anyone in the audience, I mean, Richa, I can imagine you as an actress too. It's kind of like, what do I really want to say versus like what's going to make me maybe lose that job if I say it, you know? And it's such this weird world. So just know that behind you hearing something online, I guarantee you all of us are way more opinionated than we think. It's just not reaching the internet. And I just think that, yeah, also I think it's constantly trying to ask yourself too, how are the systems broken, and also like how am I a part of those broken systems? And maybe that's me speaking from my experience, not for other people in this chat, but I think it's really important for me to think about too, as like even a queer person that also holds a lot of privilege. What's this opportunity for me versus what's this opportunity for other people? How much space am I taking up, even if it is diverse space, you know? So there's a lot that's going on in this brain when it comes to like rubber meeting the road of partnerships and creativity and just the exploitation of creativity across the board.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. Because like, as Isaiah said, like with Eco Talk, like I mean, half of our group chat is like rates gossip, which is very helpful. And I'm really glad that like, and Leah said this too, like creating these communities where we're transparent about how much we're getting paid. But I am always also angry that the only way for me or any of the creators that I care about to make money while creating educational content is to also like sell soap or like, you know, sell shirts or like whatever you're going to do. It's ridiculous. It's like, here we are creating hours and hours and hours of educational content. And the only way to support that is by taking away from that, like those hours that you would have been creating educational content to then go make an ad that won't actually get views, won't really educate people. It's a very silly way to be trying to like reach, like it's well, it's a terrible way to be trying to sponsor us. It's an unfair way to like hinge our entire financial existence on. And frankly, like I think it's such a good example of how people are still, and especially major organizations and major funders are still not entirely privy to the fact that social media influencers in this space like have the power that they do as like educational resources, and that people come to us for information. So instead, we're still just valued as influencers for selling product, as opposed to like our actual value, which is in the information that we distribute. So I need to see like a shift from product placement to like fund our work. Just back it. Like you need creatives to help spread these messages. It's like that would be the biggest thing for me, is like stepping away from brand work. Sorry, I get emotional about that.
Now we got ourselves all on our soapboxes. So this is great. Richa, what's your soapbox? I want to hear. Do you have a soapbox from the acting world? We need to hear it. This is what the people came for. They want some soapbox magic.
I was muted. I definitely have my own soapbox, and I think I'm just so glad that you're all saying what you're saying, because all of it is so true, and it is so important that, you know, the work that you guys are all doing, and, you know, all eco-influencers and people who are talking about climate change and the things that really matter need to be funded for their work, and not just through brand partnerships. And I think it is so true, and it is so upsetting to see the pay disparities when it comes to BIPOC people and all marginalized people. And I definitely have seen it myself in my work in Hollywood too. And it's something that, as Gonia said, it happens in every industry. It truly does. And as much as, you know, we like to think that things are changing and, you know, things are getting better, maybe in some ways, but there is still a huge problem. And yeah, that's my soapbox.
We love it. That's what these are always for. We want everyone on their soapbox. Well, unfortunately, we are almost out of time, but I wanted to end it on this one. Obviously, everyone needs to go follow all of you, and I think you all follow each other if you don't already. But Who else should folks be following? Storytellers, creators, who do you want to lift? Or if you have any tips for all of our folks who are watching today of how they can better spread their messages around climate justice.
I just want to say, I think it's so important to follow everybody here, aside from me, all the people here, and also just follow more BIPOC people who are talking about this and Indigenous people, because I think that, these people and these cultures have been on the front lines for centuries. And I think it was Leah who mentioned earlier, it's not that they're not there, they're not around, but we're not given the pathways to have the spotlight. So I think it's so important to listen to their voices, because they truly are the ones who have been on the front lines for forever throughout history, and we need to give them more of a spotlight.
I think going off of that, also learning about the EJ elders, so people like Dr. Robert Bullard, Bernice Travis Miller, Mustafa Santiago Ali. I can name a bunch of people, like at the Hip Hop Caucus. These are people that I really look up to that paved the way for environmental justice to even, be a field of study and a movement. So I would say get well versed in the environmental justice movement. In my opinion, it's a lot cooler than the Earth Day movement. There's more soul, there's more, color. So yeah, check it out.
Isaias, what you got for us?
Yeah, no, I would say get involved with more of your local community members, because at the end of the day, I always tell people, like, it doesn't matter what social status you're holding. Like, when there's a climate crisis, people aren't going to be like, I need to save Isaias, known as QueerBrown vegan. It's like, save your community, save your health. And so at the end of the day, like, who you're coming into accountability to, or who you're responsible to serve to, is yourself and your community, because digital spaces do create that illusion that you have to be there for everyone. And that's really an unsustainable mindset. So I would say creating those offline relationships is very deep and powerful, and really humanizes you to really challenge your ego, and also just to really just recenter your own values of where you come from.
I love that. Pattie, Abbie?
I'll add on to that. You can also follow all of your local representatives online and just go, I'm not going to say harass, but harass them on Twitter. That's fair. It's fair game. You're allowed to do that. And I don't think that they can legally block you. So you can go tweet about all the environmental things. So I couldn't agree more with Isaias on that one of like following people within your local community, especially elected representatives, or becoming one is also an option. Following local journalists, so important. And then, I want to tell everybody to follow like every single person in Eco Talk, but that's like 17, so I won't list them all.
I love what everyone mentioned so much. Leah, to like piggyback off you, I think more than following people online, I think reading people's work has changed my life. Reading Adrienne Marie Brown, reading Braiding Sweetgrass, Robin Wall Kimmerer has changed my whole entire life. Reading Nature's Rainbow has changed my life. So I think books is huge. I think in a world where, so much is hitting us so much online, I'm almost going to encourage everyone to like divest their time from online. I think it's very easy to live your life on your phone these days, and I think we need to get out there. And so I'm going to encourage you to just take a friend and take them outside. And I think that those are the people we need to follow or be in community with, which is exactly Isaias's point. Like, your community, that's who you're responsible for. And so I really hope you can just get connected locally. And it's weird. I'm doing that right now in Bend. I've just moved here, and it feels like very novel to like ask to meet up again in real life, especially after Little Miss Pandemica entered the chat. But like, do it. It has so much value. Nothing replaces face-to-face accountability, face-to-face relationships, collaborating in person. And the final thing I'll say is, no matter what you do, when it comes to following people or building community people or taking action with climate people, do it with people, collaborate with people. Like, I lived so much of my life thinking I could have no impact on the climate because I viewed climate action as like being the organizer of a rally. And like, turns out I am actually pretty good at community organizing, but like, that's not for everyone. Like, when it comes to it, how you spend your dollar every day is political and does matter for our climate. I almost knocked my water bottle off the table. Dear God, on my soapbox. The community that you're a part of like matters for our climate. You know, make that diverse, make it full of valuable perspectives, and realize that those people around you, it's so beautiful to do collective action with them. And I've learned over the past few years that everything I thought about the climate movement was wrong because there was such a new movement happening within the climate movement. So I would just invite anyone listening to know that they're a part of it, even if they are an ally, even if they are a white person or a straight person, even though I think everyone's a little bit gay. It doesn't matter. Like, you're an ally, come along with us. Like, we need you too. I want to create a community that isn't just for queer people, but is for allies as well. So like, you are welcome to our very gay party. Put on some heels, bitch.
I love it. I love it so, so much. Oh my God. Well, thank you again, all of you, so much for such an empowering conversation. We're going to move forward with this and go outside and cancel golf. And I also want to say thank you so much to our sponsors, the Center for Cultural Power and Sierra Club, for making this whole panel possible. Please make sure to check out our Take Action Guide for more tips on how you can take everyday actions for the planet at hollywoodclimatesummit.com/takeaction. Tomorrow you can tune in at 11 a.m. for our workshop on pathways to action, and then at 1:30 for our climate ambassadors lunch, which includes a whole expo where you can check out booths with our amazing partners and network with other folks in entertainment and the environment to create, as we've been talking about this whole day, some community. Thank you so much again. Have a great rest of your Saturday.